So I understand that you're more than just a travel blog author. You're actually a children's book author. You have a book coming out soon?
Yeah, I do. So it's actually coming out on July 26th this summer, and that is also the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So it's a really big, important day for me and for all people with disabilities out there. But my children's book is called Let's Explore with Cor Cor.
We've been cleared for takeoff.
Welcome to Just Travel Podcast. Here is your host, Robert Smith.
Welcome to episode 6 of the Just Travel Podcast. My guest today will cover many of the experiences around the world, including almost getting eaten by a hippo. So today we have a special guest joining us, Cory Lee. Cory has a travel blog called Curb Free with Cory Lee. He has won many awards like Best Travel Blog and Best Personal Blog, Person of the Year for a New Mobility magazine. He has been featured on many TV shows like CBS News, Travel Channel, to name a few. Cory, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate it.
Tell us a little more about yourself.
I was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy at the age of 2, and that's a form of muscular dystrophy. And then by the age of 4, I was using a power wheelchair full time. And so spinal muscular atrophy, it basically makes my muscles very, very weak, much more than a normal able-bodied person. And so the most steps that I could ever really take was about 8 steps. And then I needed a power wheelchair full-time from the age of 4. And so since then, I've always tried to keep a positive attitude, and I was raised by a single mom, and she kind of raised me with the motto, if you can't stand up, stand out. And so that is kind of where I got my determination and ambition, I think, to really try to strive for success. And then in 2013, right before I graduated college, I started my travel blog, Curb Free with Cory Lee, for other travelers that use a wheelchair. And I try to put accessibility information on there and let them know about, what are the most accessible cities in the world, or accessible attractions and transportation, or kind of whatever they would need to know if they're traveling somewhere. I really try to help people out and let them know what's possible. And so it's been really a whirlwind of the past 6 years and a lot of fun.
So you kind of studied abroad during college or just traveled during college?
No, I never studied abroad, but I just traveled around. And the first international trip that I ever took was when I was like 15, and I went to the Bahamas. And in the Bahamas, it was really kind of the first time that I got to see another culture and try like different foods and like conch fritters and all that good stuff. So really it was on that trip that just like the travel bug was born within me, and it made me really want to keep exploring and go much further. And so in high school, I took German, and I studied German like all 4 years of high school. And then into college, and I went to Germany and Austria, and just traveled around during college with whatever extra money that I could gather up. And then, when I was actually graduating college, I was planning a trip to Australia. And when I was doing the research for that trip, I was starting to discover that there really wasn't a lot of accessible travel information online. And so that is where the idea for Curb Free with Cory Lee was born.
So you were kind of the first to have a travel blog. Is it more of a disability?
Yeah, there were a couple others out there, but there were only really like 1 or 2 others at the time in 2013. And so, one travel blog can't cover every destination in the world. So I really thought, by lending my voice, we could cover more places and let even more people know, what all is possible, because maybe the other blogs weren't covering places like Australia or, the Bahamas or Europe or wherever it may be. And so I really wanted to just start a place where I could put my information on there that I've learned and hopefully help people out.
What have you experienced for outside the U.S. as accessibility and how they easy is it easier or harder to travel with a wheelchair or disability?
Yeah, some places outside the U.S. are definitely tougher because in the U.S. we luckily have the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is coming up on its 30th anniversary this July. And so we are fortunate to have that here in the U.S., but in places like Estonia or India, they don't have the same laws as we do. And so accessibility does vary, but luckily more and more places around the globe are starting to become more inclusive and realize that, there is a market for accessible travel out there. And so a good organization called the Open Doors Organization, they did a survey back in 2017, and they discovered that people with disabilities spend over $17 billion per year just on travel. So, we are out there and the market is huge and we want to travel. It's just that we often don't find the same opportunities as, other travelers without disabilities. But luckily more and more destinations are opening up. So in the past couple of years, I've visited places like Morocco and India and South Africa. And those were all places that I thought, would not be possible as a wheelchair user.
So outside of North America, is Europe more accessible than others, or?
Some places in Europe are definitely very, very good. So in Finland, I went to Helsinki, Finland a few years ago, and then I went again like 2 years ago. So I've been twice now. And surprisingly, in Helsinki, they have over 300 wheelchair accessible taxis available. And so in pretty much almost every U.S. city, you won't find anywhere near that many accessible taxis. And so, Helsinki, it of course does have some faults with accessibility. And there are things like, cobblestone in some areas and different things like that, which make it a little difficult. But they do really shine in some other areas as well. So I think it really just depends on where you're wanting to go. But Europe is definitely really ahead of the game, more than like Asia or Africa and South America even, and places like that.
Yeah, some of those older cities with the cobblestones, it's hard for anybody to walk on them.
Yeah.
We're walking in Rome, and they're not just little cobbles; they're huge and they're very uneven. I don't.
Yeah, I went to Estonia a few years ago, and those cobblestones there they are rough. They will try to. It's hard for me to even like drive over it, and I feel like a wheel's gonna like pop off, after just a few rolls. But it's a beautiful place, though.
What do you do? How much do you travel right now? Oh, well, you can't travel right now, obviously. I assume you're kind of quarantined.
Yeah, I've been self-isolating for almost 2 months, so okay, it's been a little rough, but we'll get back out on the road one day.
In a normal year, how much do you travel?
So usually about 3 to 4 months out of the year. It's not full time, but over the past few years, my blog has really grown by like leaps and bounds, and we've been given so many really cool opportunities and gotten to travel a lot more. So I would say on average, like last year, it was about 3 to 4 months out of the year.
So what are some of the surprising benefits you've received from your blog?
Just like really getting to work with destinations to promote accessibility. And so, frequently like destinations will reach out to me and email, and they will want me to come and visit in exchange for a write-up or a review of accessibility within that destination. And so I've been able to do that for like Morocco and South Africa, Ecuador, India, like all over the world. And it's really something that I never imagined that I would, get to have that opportunity where destinations are actually reaching out to me and wanting me to come to promote accessibility and review it. And so that's always like really special for me and like really, it's so surreal that it even happens. But it's definitely a lot of fun, and I've been able to visit some really great destinations because of that.
So how early do you think you'll be back on the road traveling again?
I honestly have no idea. It seems like, I mean, the whole coronavirus situation, it's changing like every day, I feel like. And so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping by the end of the year, like, we'll be able to get back to semi-normal, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm probably, for this year, I'm planning to keep it just in the States pretty much, and like driving places and maybe flying within the US at least like by the end of the year. But I'm really, really hoping that by 2021 we can get, back to traveling internationally and doing some cool things. So in 2021, I've planned to go to like New Zealand and Japan, and these are places like I'm really dying to get to if we can just get the world back to normal.
Right. So if you're to travel in North America, do you like going to like the national parks? What are the places that are, accessible that you really care or like?
Yeah, I'm always a really big fan of beach destinations. So I always love a beach, and reviewing like beaches for accessibility. So seeing if they have like a beach wheelchair or, stuff like that. So, I mean, I'll always like take a trip to Florida or the Gulf Coast of Alabama, and the beaches of North Carolina. Like, those are all pretty close to me. But I mean, I'm always up for a beach or the outdoors. I love the outdoors too. So national parks I've actually not been to too many national parks so far, but I am hoping to get to more national parks. And maybe this year is kind of the perfect time to do it later on in the year if I do stay more in the US. So yeah, hopefully I'll see many more national parks in the near future.
So I noticed you knocked off one of your bucket list items recently by going to Antarctica.
Yeah, I did.
What was that like?
Yeah, it was so much fun and just beautiful and amazing. But it was really a dream that I had since I was like 6 years old, just to go to Antarctica and visit all 7 continents. And I got the opportunity this past February to finally go to Antarctica on a cruise with Holland America. And so we were able to go on like a month-long cruise, and we spent some time in Antarctica and the Antarctic Peninsula, and we saw like dozens and dozens of whales and hundreds of penguins and all kinds of amazing animals. And I'm such a fan of like wildlife and animals, so that was really like a big highlight for me. And I actually was able to do Antarctica and visit it right before my 30th birthday, and so that was another like big goal of mine, was to visit all 7 continents before I turned 30. And so that happened like 1 week before I turned 30. I did it. So it's still like surreal. And I'm really lucky that I went earlier this year before, all the coronavirus took over the world. So at least I had one last really good trip in before all this started.
So I noticed you were almost bitten by a hippo one time. How'd that happen?
Yeah, I was on safari in South Africa, and we went to meet a hippo named Jessica. And anyone that's visiting South Africa can actually go meet Jessica. And she's actually a hippo that was abandoned by her like hippo family, and some humans found her, and they like raised her, and she has a bed inside their house, and it's a really bizarre story. But anyway, if you're in South Africa, you can visit Jessica. And so I went to meet her, and they handed me a sweet potato, and I was trying to reach down to put the sweet potato in her mouth, and it was kind of taking me a little while to get down low enough to reach her. And so Jessica the hippo, she got really agitated that it was taking me so long to give her this potato. And so she lunged up out of the water and grabbed the entire side of my wheelchair with her massive teeth and started like pulling me into the water. And she had like a full grip on the side of my wheelchair and started pulling me in. But right before I became Jessica's lunch for the day, her human dad came over and told her to stop. And thankfully she listened to him. And so she finally let go right before I went in the water with her. But it was so wild, and like I blacked out and don't even really remember it all. But we have the photos, and they are on my blog if anyone wants to see them. But yeah, it was definitely the wildest encounter I've ever had.
Well, scary there.
Yeah, very.
I also noticed your wheelchair blew up on a trip one time.
Yeah, well, it wasn't necessarily the wheelchair, but
Excuse me, not the battery, maybe.
Yeah, the wheelchair charger. It was actually on the first time that I ever went to Europe, and we arrived to our hotel in Germany, and we plugged my wheelchair charger into the wall with an adapter and a converter, like you're supposed to do, you know. And as soon as we plugged the charger into the wall, it blew up and sparks were flying. And the power in the entire hotel actually went out for about 10 minutes. And so it was a big debacle, but luckily the hotel never found out that it was us that caused the power outage. And so we were in the clear, but the next day we had to hunt down a wheelchair repair shop in Munich, Germany, and we had to buy a new charger, and it wasn't cheap, but at least we did find one available. But yeah, traveling as a wheelchair user, it definitely comes with its obstacles, but I think if you try to keep a positive attitude and know that for any problem there is a solution and we can figure out the solution, then you got to just have that mentality.
So I understand that you're more than just a travel blog author, you're actually a children's book author.
Yeah.
You have a book coming out soon?
I do. So it's actually coming out on July 26th. This summer, and that is also the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So it's a really big, important day for me and for all people with disabilities out there. But my children's book is called Let's Explore with Cor Cor. And so it's a book about a kid in a wheelchair, and he travels all around the globe as a wheelchair user, and he visits some really cool destinations. And every destination in the book is one that I've actually been to. So they are wheelchair accessible destinations. And I'm really hoping that Let's Explore with Cor Cor can hopefully inspire children out there, whether they have, a disability or not, that, the world really is their oyster and they can do anything they put their mind to.
What really makes travel interesting and enjoyable to you?
I think just getting to have the experience of knowing that I'm, not only just traveling for myself, but really, for other wheelchair users that are out there and showing them what all is possible. And so whenever I'm traveling, if I encounter a difficult situation and maybe the hotel isn't as accessible as I would have hoped it would be, or I can't find an accessible taxi or whatever the problem is, I really try to remind myself, why I'm doing this and why I started. And I think just keeping that mentality with me for the past 6.5 years has really just kept me pushing forward and really wanting to experience more and more of the world in order to bring more of the world to my readers and followers. And so that's kind of the driving force behind almost everything I do. If I don't feel like, waking up one day and trying some adventurous activity, like I went ziplining last year, and I was really scared about that experience because I wasn't sure how safe it would be as a wheelchair user to go ziplining, and I did it, and just I knew that if I did it, then I could write about it and let others know what that was like. And so I guess that's kind of the driving force behind it, though.
What are your top 3 spots to visit in North America?
North America, I would definitely say New York. New York City is probably my number one. I'm a huge, huge fan, and there's just so much to do there. Whether you're going to a Broadway show or seeing the Statue of Liberty up close. And New York actually has a lot of wheelchair accessible taxis now. And so they have a new app called it's called Accessible Dispatch. And you can order a wheelchair accessible cab from anywhere in New York City with just like the touch of a button on your phone. And so that is really wonderful that they have that finally. So I would say New York, and then I'm trying to think, maybe I would say Washington, D.C. I really love D.C. I think it's probably the most accessible city in the States because all of the public transportation is accessible. So the metro in DC is fully accessible. And then a lot of the attractions, they're all accessible and a lot of them are free. So if you go to like the Smithsonian, I mean, it's completely free. So you can really do DC on a budget, which I think is very, very nice. And number 3, I'm trying to think. I mean, I really want to say like a beach destination, but I'm going to say like Gulf Shores, Alabama. I think it's a very underrated destination. And Gulf Shores, they have power beach wheelchairs. And so when I go to Gulf Shores, I can actually get a beach wheelchair and I drive it with a joystick. So it has a battery in it and I'm able to like maneuver it myself up and down the beach. And that's really spectacular. And they also have accessible accommodations and attractions and really, really good seafood. So I think Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, Alabama would be number 3 for me.
I have not been to Gulf Shores, but it sounds very interesting to have to try that out.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people like never even think to go there because Florida is just so close. But if you fly into like Pensacola, Florida's airport, it's only like a 30-minute drive to Gulf Shores. So it's super, super close and pretty convenient to get to, and they offer a lot of fun stuff to do.
Okay, so how about your top spots outside of the U.S. or North America?
Yeah, so as far as most accessible places, I would probably say that Sydney, Australia is number 1 for me. So Sydney had accessible transportation. I mean, accessible ferries, taxis, buses, everything that you can think of. I mean, Sydney really has it. And I think in many ways, they're ahead of the USA even as far as accessibility goes. So Sydney, Australia has really got it going on. And then I would say maybe London, England. They're really great because every black cab in London actually has a ramp that will fold out. And so I can ride any cab in all of London, which is really convenient for getting around the city. So London's amazing and has a lot of really cool sites. And then I'm trying to think of one more. I'm going to say Barcelona, Spain. So I went to Barcelona for the first time just a couple of years ago. But they are amazing and they have all of like accessible transportation on the metro. I rode the metro. It was perfect. Buses. They have accessible taxis, and then their beaches are really nice. So they actually have beach wheelchairs that you can get in, and they're amphibious. And so they can roll on the sand or go into the water even. And so the ability to actually go in the water is something that a lot of destinations don't have with a beach wheelchair. And so I think that was really, really special. And Barcelona and Spain in general, even like Madrid is really beautiful. And I think Spain also has the best food in the world. And so that's why it keeps drawing me back.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was gonna go to Barcelona this summer. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, well, probably not. But you got to go one day because it really is amazing.
Well, my sister, like I said, my sister's up in Connecticut, and we were going to fly out of Boston. And I found a flight for like $170.
Oh, wow.
From Boston to Barcelona.
Oh, that's a bargain.
Yeah, it was. Use it this time. But you also mentioned Sydney, and I believe you went to the Great Barrier Reef.
I unfortunately did not go to the Great Barrier Reef.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's somewhere I'm really, really wanting to go to, but I haven't been yet. But I have heard that with the Great Barrier Reef, they actually offer wheelchair accessible boats that can take you out into the reef. And then they have like a lift on them that'll lower you into the water. And so instead of like me trying to figure out, how am I going to get in the water to go snorkeling or scuba diving, they have a lift on the boat that will get you in the water if you need it. So it's something that I'm really, really wanting to check out, and it's very, very high on my bucket list.
What other tips can you give people with disabilities to get out and travel?
Yeah, I would say really to just start planning as far in advance as you can. So I come to start planning trips like 6 to 12 months in advance, and that really gives me more time to figure out what accessibility is going to be like within that destination. And, it's a lot of work like finding the perfect accessible hotel that'll work for me. And so I'll call the hotel and request photos and videos of the accessible room, just to be sure that, it really is accessible. Because I think that the word accessible, it means so many different things to different people. And so depending on what accessible means to you, you really have to do your research and figure out, what all you can do. So I would say just planning as far in advance as you can for a trip, and really asking as many questions as possible when you're booking the hotel or trying to book any like restaurants for a dinner or any attractions and things like that. So you just got to be on top of it, but always have a positive attitude, and it'll be an amazing trip for sure.
Sounds like very good, great advice.
Thanks.
Before I jump into my final five, I want to give you opportunity to tell everybody how they can find you.
Yeah, so my blog is curbfreewithcorylee.com, and I'm also on Instagram at curbfreecorylee, and on Twitter at Cory Lee Tweets.
And my final five starts off with, I think you've already kind of said it, is what's your favorite cuisine?
I would say either like Spanish or Mexican. I would say it's a tie between those two.
How about your favorite like pizza, like toppings or where you get it?
So favorite pizza toppings? I'm usually very plain, so pretty much just cheese, marinara sauce, and like maybe black olives, but that's really it. So I'm very, very plain on the pizza.
So looking back, what do you wish you had known when you started your blog?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess I would say I wish I would have known to just really be patient with it, and like, no, it's not all going to happen at one time. Because when I was kind of starting out with the blog, I was really, doing a lot of work, writing a lot of blog posts, and kind of expecting, success to come quickly. But it did not come quickly at all. So, I didn't even make $1 from my blog for like 2 years after I started it. And it's definitely a slower process, but it's one that is worth it. And I think if I would have known, to just really stick with it, and like, it'll happen one day if you just keep putting in the work, it'll happen. That would have been valuable to know.
So what is your top 3 most memorable places you've visited?
Most memorable. So these are maybe not the most accessible by any means, but they are the most memorable. So I would say number 1 would be Morocco. I went to Morocco in 2018 and was able to like ride a camel in the Sahara Desert and do all this really cool stuff. And it's like just such a beautiful country and so many diverse experiences. And then I would also say India would probably be number 2. I went there in 2018, I believe. Yeah, 2018. And India is somewhere that I kind of always thought that I wouldn't be able to go because there wasn't much accessibility there. But when I finally went, it was just amazing and completely blew my mind. And India is like sensory overload. So the sounds and the smells and the sights, and it's really just an incredible destination unlike anywhere else on Earth. And then I guess number 3 would be Antarctica. So I went just this past February, but it was just somewhere I've always wanted to go my whole life, and the ability to finally, go there and see it firsthand, it was something I'll never forget.
So I know you've knocked off quite a few of your bucket list. Well, what's some of the top ones you still need are still on your bucket list?
So some of the top, I would say, seeing the pyramids in Egypt. That's very high up there for me. And eating pizza in Italy. That's a big one. I would love to do that. Even if it is a plain pizza, just peas. And going to Japan. I really wanted to experience Tokyo, and I'm supposed to go next summer for the Paralympics, and so
okay.
I was supposed to go this summer actually, but that was delayed. So hopefully next year that can finally happen. So I would say Egypt, Italy, and Japan are kind of my top three.
Yeah, Tokyo is a very busy, very populated city.
Yeah.
But surprisingly very clean.
Yeah, nice.
With 35 million people in the metro area, it's surprisingly very clean, and it's a really cool country.
Nice, awesome. I can't wait to go. Hopefully next summer I'll finally do it.
Hopefully all the Olympics and everything will be fine. Won't have any trouble.
Yeah, I hope.
So that's all the questions I have today for you. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. And if anyone listening has any questions or wants to talk about accessibility, I'm always happy to do it. So you can contact me just on my website and go to my contact page, and I'm happy to help out wherever I can. But yeah, thank you so much.
Again, I appreciate Cory Lee joining me today. Next time, we will have Sherry Ott from Ott's World Travel Blog. Listeners, if you like the podcast, don't forget to subscribe. And if you're feeling real generous, please give us a rating. Until next time, happy travels.